This lesson involves the creation of frequency polygon. To make a frequency polygon, you follow the same steps to set up your bins. So this hasn't changed from our last example. But what you do here, you add your two numbers together and you divide by 2 to get a midpoint. So if you added both these numbers together, 150 plus 600, you get 750. And dividing that number by 2, and you would get a midpoint of 375. And you do that for each of these steps down through. Your frequency hasn't changed. When you're doing your graph now, you're going to plot the midpoints. So your midpoints here are going to be your values on the horizontal axis. So again, it's still water flow in meters cubed per second and number of years or frequency. So midpoint of 3.7, 375 occurred 11 times, 825, 9, and then each of these values are plotted individually, and you connect each point from one to the next. Now this lets you see some data, I guess, in a different way. And what you see when you're looking here is that the first 4 intervals have values there between 1500 and 2000. But after that, you don't get the occurrences as often. Okay, and again, the most common frequency was 12 for a flow rate of 1725. So flow rate of 1725 was your most common rate or within that region. Now after that, you see that we have our lowest frequencies, 2625, flow rates occurred twice. A flow rate of around 3075 occurred 3 times, is in the middle here, between 2 and 4, so that one's 3. These didn't occur at all, and this one occurred once. Now, when we're going to look back at times when flooding occurred, when we had, I'll just clean this up. There. Now, when there was flooding around the midpoint 2175 here, that occurred 6 times, and the other 6 floods occurred when flow rates were greater than 2625. So altogether, these showed your flooding areas. So whenever you have a flow rate higher than 2175 from this frequency polygon, it appears that you have a good likelihood of having a flood. Again, this is going to look a little different than back to our histogram. We take a look back there. Our histogram indicated anything greater than 1950. Now, in the frequency polygon, again, the 1950 there, you're going to have flooding. And here we're saying 2175. So if you just think about that for a moment. So from the histogram, we're saying a flow rate of 1950 cubic meters per second. And from this one, we're saying a flow rate of 2,175. Whoops. You have a likelihood of getting flooding. So would be accurate to say that if you're, say, somewhere around 2,000 cubic meters per second, you're in that flooding potential. So both are not going to show exactly the same information, but they are going to show the general trend. And both do show that flow rate of 4,425 is unusual in that midpoint range. And just compare that back to our last one. Again, it was unusual to see it, so it showed up in both graphs.